This is a screencast about common errors that I've seen in drafts of papers or even final papers that have been turned in that are of a research sort of paper. This would include any research papers or author studies, critical essays, things like that where you need to cite sources. Or your instructor has just simply told you to use MLA. Okay, so when you're using MLA, these are some common errors I see. I can almost identify immediately if a student has not been looking at OWL at Purdue or another place for their MLA instruction, because if I don't see a header with your last name and page number, I know you haven't set up your page properly and you haven't been looking at MLA. If I don't see a double spacing on the left-hand side with your name, the teacher's name, the class, and the date, again, that's a clear sign to me you haven't been looking at MLA. Here you're going to have a title. Notice there's nothing fancy about the title, and everything is double spaced. So I can check these things right away. The next thing I check for is page 2, and I look to see if the headers continue in numeric order, again with the last name. If not, then you've done something wrong. Aside from that, I start to look for embedded citation. If I'm not seeing embedded citation, something like this, then I know that there's a problem and that you aren't giving credit for outside sources that you have used, either for your thinking or for direct quotes. In this case, the individual has used some direct quoting and they're telling us where that came from. The next thing I'll do is I will check to see if they've done their embedded citation properly. I'm making sure that there's not a period here, that the period is here, that there's parentheses here, a last name only, no comma, and a page number if applicable. I'll check the page number if there needs one later when I'm looking at the works cited page. If I see that it's a print source, then I'll want to see a page number in that location here. So I'll scan through the paper and look to see that I'm finding, in fact, citation along the way. Depending on the nature of the paper, there might be a call for a lot of citation or little, but in any regard, if you've used outside sources, we're going to look for that. So I keep scanning and I keep looking for this. In this case, notice that there's no direct quote, and yet they're giving credit to that source. As I continue scanning, I'm looking for things like that there's no extra spacing between paragraphs, as that is a no-no in MLA formatting. Another common error has to do with long quotes. Here's a long quote. This quote, you're going to notice, is indented not just 5 spaces, but 10 spaces, a full inch, okay, all the way over. And when I look at the long quotes, I make sure that they're double spaced, that there's no quotation mark here, that there's no quotation mark here, that there is some sort of citation available, and that the student hasn't begun a new paragraph after the quote. So that's a common error as well, that you end with a long quote and then start a new paragraph, but you really need to do some sort of a wrap up to that quote. So the student has done that correctly. Okay, then I just keep looking and scanning to see that there's citation along the way. I take note in my head of the different authors that are being noted, or titles. In this case, the student is using some subheadings, so I'm going to look to see that there's no extra spacing and that there's consistency in the way that the student has been providing those headings. Then about the time I get to the end of the paper, I'm going to check to see your length. Is your length within the page range given? If I say 6 pages, I'm looking for 6 full pages, not a little bit of a page. And I don't want to see the works cited page start immediately. In this case, the student has notes, and so the note page comes next. Next comes the works cited page. I'm looking to see that this says works cited and not bibliography. I'm looking for the double spacing. I'm looking for things to be alphabetized properly here. I'm looking to see that there's things that are in italics and not underlined. In each entry, something is supposed to be italicized, so I'm looking for that. Looking for a notation of print or web. And then I'm going back in my mind and I'm asking myself, did this person, when they put Allen in there, did they actually have a page number? There should be a page number because this is a print source, as long as it's like a text and not a pamphlet or something like that. So I keep scanning through to see if everything is double spaced, if they're using the hanging indents here, and noticing, here's a title of an article without an author. Okay, so did I see historical census browser somewhere in there as well? If you haven't done these things are common errors, things that are often neglected or overlooked in a paper, but they're actually the very first thing that I look for as an instructor to see that you have been following MLA. So if you haven't been doing these things in that last minute check for yourself, you're not doing your job properly, and you need to go back and tweak those things before turning it into your teacher. I hope this helped.